Chris Paul scored 13 points in last night's loss to the Mavericks as the series now shifts back to Phoenix for Game 7. Do or die time. CP3 is 3-4 in his career in Game 7s that he's played in. Afterwards, CP3 said, "I feel like we worked as hard as we did all season to get home court." All right, push comes to shove here. Shannon, what do you expect from Chris Paul in Game 7?
To be honest with you, I damn don't know what to expect. I know he has 18 turnovers in his last 4 games. He had 13 in his first 8. So he's turning the ball over at a higher rate, which decreases your team chances of winning because you're not even getting shots up at the rim. Skip, now that Jen has enlightened me that there are going to be 2 days in between, that has a lot to do when you're an older player.
Yep.
Because the one thing older players need is rest. It's hard to recover back every other day. Mm-hmm. So he has 2 days. Now, am I expecting a virtuoso? I'm not going to say he's going to give me one of those. I'm not going to say he gives me what he gave me out here in old Staples against the Clippers. I'm not going to say he gives me what he gave me in 2 or 3 of the games against the Pelicans. But I do believe he can probably go give you 18 and 10 and 2 turnovers. And now, okay, Book, you're the best player. Everybody was saying, why isn't Devin Booker in the MVP conversation? Why doesn't Devin Booker get more love? Show him why they should have got that love. Show him why they was wrong not to have you more in the MVP discussion. I believe Chris Paul gives you 18 and 10, 18 and 12. I'm not expecting 30 and what he gave you, 30 and 8, 30 and 10. I'm not expecting that. But I'm expecting Chris Paul because, Skip, he's 37 now. The days of you can just go give it back to back to back and go give you 20 and 12 on a nightly basis, those days are over for Chris Paul. So I'm going to say he gives you 18 and 10. Devin Booker does the heavy lifting. DeAndre Ayton's been playing well in this series, as well as he should, because they don't have an opposition on the other side that can deal with him. And I believe those 3, that big 3 there, is enough to get them home in a Game 7.
So, for the longest time, as I closely observed Chris Paul's career, I found it hard to root for him because he was a dirty player. On occasion, he would go below the belt, cheap shot artist, and it was just hard for me to process that because he's the president of the Players Association, but he's that.
And so unnecessary.
So unnecessary, and he would just lose his mind.
Right.
Like it's like one loose screw of competitive rage where you just lose it and you're going to get even with them. You're going to cheap shot them. And yet, I thought all along that the State Farm commercials were so great for him because he was so great in them, playing not only himself but his alter ego brother Cliff, that it made him more lovable because you started to think, that's Chris Paul. Well, that's not really. He's just playing himself, but he's acting, right? And yet he is beloved and highly respected by everybody around the league. And yet I kept saying he's getting a pass for the dirty play. And then it was one thing after another with him starting in New Orleans where it never quite worked in the postseason. He'd get bad breaks. He'd get hurt. Even against my Spurs, he won Game 1, if you recall, at Staples Center. Back when he was with the Clippers, but he pulled his hamstring, and then it plagued him the rest of the playoffs, and it never quite got home where he could get a clean run through the playoffs. And last year, what happened? They win the first 2 games against Milwaukee in the finals, and Devin Booker pulled his hamstring, or at least tweaked it. He tried to go. As you always say, he's like a master of healing with his hamstring.
Man.
Okay, so he bounces back and tries to play, but he wasn't right. They weren't right, and they lose 4 straight games, and they're over and out. And this year, I've been told that this year means more than anything to Chris of any point in his career because, man, they won the regular season by 8 games. They were 8 games better than anybody in the league. So you are perfectly positioned as the #1 overall seed, to go do something to cap off your career with your first ring. It could be your last ring, but you need to go do this. And all of a sudden, it's not feeling right because they keep rising and falling. And it's very troubling to me that you've lost 3 straight games at Dallas and you haven't even been competitive. You look ordinary to me. And what troubles me even more is that I've concluded that in the end, the Suns don't go like as Devin Booker goes. And I tried to make a case somebody on that team needs to be in the MVP, at least discussion. And it was Devin Booker. But in the end, the most valuable player, and I think you stood up and said this, was it's CP3. They go, he's the engine. Okay.
Well, you keep talking about he hadn't been competitive in Dallas. Hell, he hadn't been competitive in Phoenix either since that 28-point game, game 2.
4 straight games averaging 9 points, 4 rebounds, and only 6 assists with 5 turnovers. So for 4 straight games, you've averaged 6 assists with 5 turnovers.
Yeah.
Well, that won't fly, obviously. And yet we hark back to those classic Game 6 closeout games here at Staples against the Clippers a year ago. He scored 41 and hit 7 of 8 threes. And then at New Orleans, Game 6 closeout game, he scores 33 points, and he goes 14 of 14 in that game. And then Game 2 of this series, he scored 28, and I'm thinking, here he goes.
Right.
He's found a late career rebirth, right? A renaissance.
Skip, he has to pick his spots. And if you notice, Skip, he'd be coasting along. Okay, Book, you do your thing. Okay, D.A. Okay, Bridges, give us a little something. Okay, Crowder, hit a couple of threes. And then he has to pick his spot. As you get older, Skip, you can't just put your just go. Hey, let me give me like 6 here. Okay, let me coast. I get you 2-4 over here. And then maybe if I got enough in the tank, I can bring you home in the fourth quarter. But for whatever reason, they've done a great job of wearing his butt down. Reggie Bullock is doing a tremendous job. And then Brunson, Skip, he gets attacked. If you put him on Brunson, Brunson's attacking. He can't guard Luka because Luka's going to attack him. He can't guard any of the other guys because they're so much taller than he is. So he has to play on both ends. He can't just sit back and relax.
In the end, he's 6 feet tall.
Yes.
Period. End of story.
Yeah.
And he's playing like he's 6 feet tall. Whew.
Guys, we got to leave this one here because we've got to get to who are the Heat going to face next. Will Jason Tatum and the Celtics be able to bounce back against Giannis and the Bucks tonight? Stick around. That's next.
No mercy.
Shannon, who do you think wins this Game 6 and what's the score?
I'm going to say the Warriors close it out, but I think it's going to be close. What the Warriors have done is they've allowed, in the last 2 games, they've allowed the Grizzlies, Skip, to get more. They're already a confident team, but they've gotten more and more confident. And they probably should have won, Game 4. They probably should have won that ball game.
I agree.
But they didn't execute down the stretch, and we know the Warriors get you in that situation, they're going to execute. But Game 5, they came out and says, nah, 38 points? You can't give up 38 points in a quarter. You can't give up 77 points in a half and expect to win.
They were down 55 points.
55 points. So that just tells Skip, but I don't expect Clay. I don't expect Steph. I don't expect Jordan Poole to shoot as bad as they did. But it's not about shooting. You can shoot good, but you better not let this other team get 77 points in a half. I mean, you give up 38 points in the first quarter. They have 39 points in the second quarter, and you expect to win?
It just kept going up.
Going up, and up. But I expect them to close this ball game out. You do not want to get on a plane and take your butt back down to Memphis on Sunday for Game 7. You're asking for trouble. And normally they're very good in these situations. Last game notwithstanding, I expect them to play better. I expect them to defend better. Now, Steven Adams is low. You might want to think about starting Kevon Looney to help have somebody box his big butt out.
I believe that Steve Kerr will make that switch. It'll be like an Iguodala switch in the finals back in 2015.
Because you need somebody to bang and keep his big butt off the board, Skip. Because this was the first game that the Warriors actually got out-rebounded. They play that depth lineup. That's a small team, shoot a bunch of threes. The ball's going all over the place. It's not carrying me like it normally when guys are shooting short shots and it's going to fall up under the rim. Ball's going to be all over the place. But Steven Adams was a load. He gave you a bunch of offensive rebounds, and they were making their threes. You said you wanted to see Desmond Bane. Hell, everybody showed up. Jaren Jackson 3, he showed, J3, he showed up, making threes from 28 feet, 30 feet away. I'm going to say the Warriors win 114-105.
Oh, that's...
I'm going to need them to cover.
You got the Warriors to cover?
Yeah, I'm going to got them to cover.
Really?
You got them to cover.
So it's 8 is the spread.
So I'm going to say they win by 9.
Okay, will you give me Memphis and 8?
Nope, I will give you Memphis straight up. We don't do points.
What are you talking about?
You Vegas now.
You just went on the record and said it was a 9-point game. How much do you trust? It's Steph and Clay and Draymond. Remember what Draymond said early in the series? We're not the Timberwolves, right?
So you run a gambling house,
Yeah, remember what? No. Do you remember what Draymond said early on? I feel very comfortable against them. Very comfortable because we are so much more